Hi, everybody. It's Grace. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. So, it's become summer in the Pacific Northwest where I live, and it might be the summer where you live too. And that brings up a really interesting issue. Your body is going to be seen in a greater view if you wear light clothes, if you keep yourself comfortable and you put on shorts or tank tops or bathing suits, God forbid, and you go to the beach. Even if you don't live in a place where there is a beach, even if you don't right now, as you're watching this, you aren't surrounded by an environment that's hot. You notice that there are times and moments when you'd rather not be seen naked. You'd rather not have parts of your body showing up at all. And it can be so stressful. In fact, you can even put stress on top of stress by telling yourself you are so superficial and there's something wrong with you that you care so much about how your body looks. Chatter, 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 on and on. You know, you shouldn't, so Hollywood. Let's just be normal in our lives. Who cares how the body looks? And you notice you care. So, first thing to do is to just let those thoughts be there, like sort of allowing them to be, instead of being so harsh and critical with yourself for even have these kinds of thoughts, even having them. Just simply allow them to be as they are. It's very understandable that any of us would have thoughts about our appearance and how we show up in the world and what that means about us. And we think other people are thinking things about us that we are thinking it about us. Because you've probably noticed you have thoughts about other people. Wow, that person is enormous. Oh my gosh, that person is so skinny, they must be anorexic. Or, wow, that must be difficult to have that, not be able to walk on that leg, or, whatever. We notice these things. We notice these things. And we will come to conclusions too, the same ones we've all been taught. So, one of my favorite things is to begin to look at this deep conditioning, social conditioning that's shared. Where else do your thoughts come from? But you learned them from somewhere. You didn't invent them. Not one single stressful thought. So here we go again on looking at the body and these thoughts that we sometimes call superficial or ridiculous or not worthy of attention. Well, let's look. One of the most powerful ways to look at thoughts about the body that are critical, this thing that I'm looking at is ugly, is to go stare at it in the mirror. I know that's a difficult and tricky invitation, but it's very powerful, very powerful. I first learned about this exercise around 30 years ago, reading Susie Orbach's Fat is a Feminist Issue. It was a really great piece of work for me because it talked about, for the first time, sort of this grand social conditioning and where I was just buying what was true and then starting to believe it and joining right in on the crowd. Yeah, let's all try to get a thin body that looks perfect like that, not like the way I look. So I did have a part of my body, even though by some standards I was pretty close to normal body shape. But that doesn't matter. Even if you think you are on the extreme end of a bell curve, like a super heavy person or a super thin person or whatever it is that's wrong, quote unquote, it doesn't matter. I had parts that when I looked at them, I felt deep anguish and shame and like this energy of hatred almost for what I was seeing. So I was looking at my thighs, and they seemed to have cellulite and bumpiness. I wanted them to be super muscular, like, I don't know, there's these huge glutes that were just intense muscle, like Wonder Woman or something. And they just did not look like that. And they never have, and I bet they never will. So that's what I wanted. I thought that would be better. And I could hardly look at my own thighs in a mirror, looking around at the back of them and seeing the bumps of cellulite. But I decided I was going to do this exercise. I actually decided I was going to do this exercise by the third time I was asked to do it in about a 20-year period. So Susie Orbach was first. Then I was in a special support therapy group that was just a general therapy. It wasn't for anyone with eating disorders or anything especially wrong with your body, but someone suggested that I do that. A wonderful therapist suggested that I do this exercise. And to many of the people in the group, even if they didn't have deeply disturbing body image issues, she suggested this. And then later on in another workshop, here it came again. Look at yourself in the mirror and look at the part that you find the worst about you. If you just want to look at your whole entire body, fine, do that. But zero in on the part that feels the most painful and give it a good stare. Spend some time with that. All right, you may think the thought, this is ugly, and you may think that is so true. And instantly the mind is off like a rabbit, ready to fix this ugly thing and turn it into something beautiful. And guess where you go first? Eating. I gotta shift my eating. I gotta eat less. I'm gonna change this about my eating. And of course, a lot of anxiety can be generated around food and eating and your relationship to food by looking at this body and finding it ugly. I love using the work of Byron Katie for this particular process while you're staring at that thing that you don't like. First question, is it true that it's ugly? Oh yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I could never see this as pretty. Can you absolutely know that that's true? Are you positive? First 15 years of doing this exercise, those few times that I dared to do it, I answered absolutely true. I didn't even have the work in a formal way, but I thought that was ugly. No matter what. This is ugly what I'm looking at. It should be changed. It would be much better if it looked different. You see how you react when you believe this is ugly and I must do something about it, and how you live your life, and how it is when you're with other people. You may choose to never go to the beach, never walk down the street with a pair of shorts on, and never get yourself comfortable in any kind of group environment. You may not date people because you think of yourself as ugly. You may never want to be sexual. You just don't want to, you want to keep everything covered up and closed in. Just notice that might be how you react, and it can be very painful, very isolating, very lonely. So who would you be without that belief? That's question number 4. Who would you be if you couldn't have that thought? This can be really hard to even access. What? I've always had that thought. I've had that thought since I was 6. Who would I be without that thought? Who would I actually be? So if you're in a forest and you're looking at 2 trees, and one is a gigantic redwood tree that is 100 feet wide and 400 years old, and then next to it is a little alder tree that's a willowy, wispy thing that is 1/20th the size of the trunk of the big giant redwood tree. You wouldn't say, my, that alder tree is so much more beautiful, so much more acceptable. I believe that alder tree is much more powerful and has a lot more self-control. I want to be like the alder tree, not the redwood. It wouldn't even cross your mind that would be the most absurd thing, would it not? So what if you turned that thought all the way around? What if you just played with that? What I'm looking at, I did it was only about a decade ago, and I was staring at these thighs that I thought were ugly and had cellulite, and I suddenly realized, when I look at Texas hill country and the bumps and waves that go across the horizon, Texas hill country, I don't say, that should be flat. That would be much better if it was hard and flat. I don't like it the way it looks. And I realized, I always think Texas hill country is beautiful. Maybe I can think that about these thighs as well. Take care, everybody. Let me know how it goes.